Don't take it so seriously. Lighten up. Trust the mystery. Lighten up. It doesn't matter anyway. Just enjoy your life. Get out of your way. Lighten up.
Welcome to Lighten Up with Bonnie Wirth on Empower Radio, an inspirational hour of conversation and interviews to help you shift perspective and create balance between being spiritual and human. Now here's your host, Bonnie Wirth on Empower Radio.
Lighten up.
Hello, happy, beautiful day, sweet friends. I hope that you are enjoying this change of season. And what I mean by change of season isn't necessarily what's playing out in the official season calendar of our world, but really the change of season within the energy that we're playing in. It really has shifted into a place now where we're really getting deep and focused, and we're on go mode now. Have you been feeling that? We really went through a period in time as we started out, 2017 with evaluation, we beginning to set some foundations, really kind of figuring out what we wanted to be when we grew up and how we were going to contribute to the next 9-year cycle, to not only our own lives, but of course to that of all of humanity. And what's so beautiful now is that we're in a place where our soul's really taken over. It's like our mission, regardless of whether we know what it is, has already begun. And so we're in a really distinctive energy now that is asking us to get moving, to get going, to get to work. And we can probably expect this energy now to play out for the next 6 months. You're going to find that it's go time. And even in go time, I don't know about you, but I sure have noticed how quickly time it flies by. Whether it be when you think you've got an hour, suddenly poof, the hour's gone. When you believe you have 3 or 4 hours, poof, it's like what happened? The cycle of energy is so rapid right now. And honestly, as I said, you can expect this to play out for the next 6 months for sure. It's go time, my friends. And that's why today's show topic is really important, because it is about finding a new pace within all of this energy. So as I said, our souls are active. They're wanting to go. We're feeling the call, even if we don't know what that call is. And our souls are in a place where they've taken on such leadership within us. But we really have to find a way, because at the end of the day, we're still these little humans that are trying to figure it all out. And so we've got to bring some alignment, some understanding, and how to really find pace with our soul and get into really honoring what is best and what is in our high, what is best, but what's in our highest. How is it that we can truly be within this energy on purpose and find our happiness? And I think that's the key here. Several months ago, I was talking with a dear friend of mine, and I was expressing to her that even in the midst of everything that I had going on, all of the wonderful retreats that I was doing, all of my fabulous clientele, all of the work, this fulfillment that I was getting on a very deep level of knowing that I was helping in some way and making a difference in the lives of others was, it was hitting all the bells and whistles. All of the check marks on my list were shiny and bright, and it was check, check, check. And yet there was something inside of me that had altered or shifted. Suddenly I felt as if I really didn't feel happy. And now if you've been following my story at all over the last several years, you know that was seeking happiness was the one thing that led me on my spiritual journey. I just wanted nothing more than to be happy. And I started to recognize that in some way, I wasn't happy again. Now, it wasn't that I was entering a real dark period of my life. I was just in awareness that there was something that was playing out here. Now, for like many of you, of course, the universal energies do play with us. And of course, being the empaths that we are, we're always, inundated by all of that information that is streaming through the heavens. So not only was I working within that, but I was really feeling tired. I knew that some way I was getting out of balance. And I almost as if I saw the edge of things. And when I got to the edge, I had to try really hard to pull myself back. Now, we can look, I suffered from depression for many, many years. And I knew on every in every way that it resembled depression. And yet it wasn't the lowest, darkest that I had ever been, because in some way I was still healthy and functioning and aligned and feeling fulfilled in my life, which was completely different than when I was depressed all those years ago. So it wasn't your stereotypical kind of depression. I mean, I was getting out of bed every day. I was meditating, doing my yoga. I was, seeing clients. But I noticed that my speed, my internal speed was really slowing down. And I have to be very honest, because my motivation and my passion for things literally dropped to zero. Like, it's almost like, I had none. When I say it dropped to zero, there was nothing. I didn't have inspiration for writing. I didn't have inspiration for, creating any programs. I didn't have inspiration for any new, updates to my website, whatever it was. I really felt as if I was in this holding pattern. And honestly, throughout my spiritual journey, throughout the course of these last 10 years that have been so profound and amazingly life-changing for me, I really had never been here before. Now, it kind of scared me a little bit because, as I said, I really felt, wow, I'm recognizing this as the energy of depression, but I know that it's not. What is this? And so as I sat with it, and as I really began to honor the slowing pace that was playing out inside of me, of course, ask and you shall receive, because so many things began to play out. There really was, when I look at, I guess you could call it in some way, a little bit, burnout really feels like a really big word, a really harsh way of explaining it. But I guess in some way I was spiritually burnt out. And that's what I was noticing when I was feeling like I was on the edge. As I said, my motivation had faded. The passion that had once fueled the work that I was doing was gone. My emotions, I felt I was almost kind of numb. I wasn't really, there were no roller coasters. There was no highs and lows. But I was just, numbness really was what I can identify with. As hard as it is to say, but, I really didn't like people very much. Now, as an empath, that's a natural thing for all of us. There are days where we're not really into people. But I was finding that was something that was a regular it was playing out on a regular basis for me, that people were really draining me. Not everybody, not all the time, but I was just starting to recognize that I was being drained by people more often than not. I was starting to get angry, and that's huge for me because I'm a pretty even keel, happy-go-lucky, optimistic, joy-filled person. And I was starting to get angry to the point of not just being frustrated because of the way things were playing out, or not that I was, just disappointed on a few things, but really angry. And it was very disproportionate. I started losing my cool over really small things, and again, a sign that there was something so much deeper playing out here. I even really was becoming quite cynical. The little human in me was really showing up judgment that day on a few days. And I don't like that person because that's truly not who I am. What else can I say? I talked about productivity, just not even being able to have the inspiration to complete anything that I really put my mind or my heart on. But one of the biggest things, again, was that I really wasn't laughing anymore. Nothing seemed fun or truly funny. And for me, I'm a Gemini. Everything tickles me. Everything is funny. But it wasn't, even though I might have laughed and had lightheartedness, I really didn't feel it in the core of me. So those are just a few of the signs that begin to play up. The ones that, again, honoring what was playing out in the universe, honoring how the planets and the stars and everything is interacting with me, being the empath and all of the emotional overwhelm that I'm feeling from the world and being able to clear and to find my alignment and to find my joy. And at the end of it, I really was in a place where I was really on burnout, on this place that I know that for many leaders, we can often find themselves in this. And I knew that I needed to get back into me. I needed to find a way to be able to realign with my passions, to find the fire that fuels me, and ultimately, really to find that spark of joy, of happiness in my own life. And so that really is, when I realized that I have to find a new pace with my soul. I had to really begin to to get my mojo back, I guess is really what it came down to. So it was kind of scary. And those that were closest to me, I can talk about it now very freely. Those that were closest to me, of course, knew that it was going on. And I think that's the number one thing, that if you're finding that you're in this place of being stuck, where you have lack of motivation, where you're tired and lethargic and you're, like I said, you're just resenting people for no reason. All this emotional stuff that is playing out inside of you. If you're finding that it's just not shaken free, I think that's the number one thing to begin to do is, talk to someone about it, tell someone. And that's always hard. And I think for a lot of people, we resist it because of pride. And I know myself as being a leader, as being someone who, you tuning in, you're tuning in to hear, to learn, for all of my clientele and all the people who I serve, really looking to me to be able to support and help them. And I reached this place where and I guess out of pride, right? That ego pride, where I couldn't just allow it myself. It was very, very humbling to be able to go to the people closest to me and say, you know what, I'm struggling. I'm feeling like I'm suffocating. And I got to find me. It's tough, my friends, but I had to swallow my pride and I had to find someone safe. And God bless those beautiful angels who come forward in those moments, because it is tough, but it is ultimately the first step towards our wellness. It's ultimately the first step towards our alignment. Now, I want to talk a little bit also about, this ability to be able to admit it and what happens when we admit it. And that's kind of the turning point for me. As I finally was able to express to, as I said, those people closest to me, what was playing up inside of me, I really then, began to discover even greater awareness. And my gosh, isn't it just like our souls to take us through the trenches in order for us to grow and evolve, right? And we're finding this, here we are. And you've heard me talk about it time and time again. Here we are in 2017, this year of new beginning, right? And when we look at last year, it really was a closing of things. The chapters were closing on certain aspects of things. We were in a place of completion. And this year here, I think for most of us, maybe we were naive in thinking that all of the emotional disconnect and discord would be over and done because it was a new year. And yet that's not the case at all. In fact, what's playing out now for us is that we are unearthing things even deeper inside of us. And as we are unearthing within us, there are still emotions that are playing up. But as this is happening, our souls really are rising into play. There's that emergence or that integration of the ego with the higher self that's playing out. But it's not that it's easy. This isn't, why would we come to earth and expect this to be easy, angels? Like, really? But we're here for the contrast. We're here to grow, to evolve, to learn. And that's certainly what I've been doing. One thing that I'm going to tell you that is important to recognize is that our emotions, no matter how we feel, as I say, must be honored. We must recognize them. We must appreciate them and give ourselves permission to feel however we wanted to feel. And that's really what I did these last few weeks. I really allowed myself the opportunity to feel how I needed to feel. But what I discovered in all of that is that our emotions are really unreliable. Because, I want to simplify this just a little bit. Our emotions catch up to us. And it's not that we have to catch up to them. Where we are right now, when we get caught up in our emotions, we're really at that human ego. But when it's our higher self, and when we've elevated into this soul consciousness that so many of us are moving forward in, these divine, this fifth dimensional energy that's at play, we are more deeply in love than we've ever been before. And so because we're more deeply in love, our emotions now are catching up to us. And so it's this truth that I have kept, tripping over and tripping over. And what I mean here now is that these emotions, anything that, we rarely want to exercise, we rarely want to eat healthy, get enough sleep, we don't want to follow through on obligations, but we do things anyway. Okay? So let's just play that out because we know that it's right. And what I found that what has been really playing up and what is the other side of it has been this struggle. It's where I've let my emotions tell me what to do instead of allowing me to embrace the emotion and understand that this is love at its much deeper level. This is love at its, I want to say, this pure concentration than we've ever experienced before. And that in itself brings up a whole different way of experiencing our life. But the good news is that once we kind of push past these emotions, there is payoff here. And our emotions will begin to, as I said, to catch up to us. And it almost feels like, how do I want to explain this? I'm grasping at the heavens here to bring through the words. It's as if we can't feel them anymore, but they're there. When I talked about the numbness that was playing up, it wasn't a matter that my emotions weren't existing. It was a matter that now in this new energy, I didn't feel them in the same way that I felt them before. I was needing to give them time to catch up. Now, this burnout, this spiraling that I've been going through for the last few months, like I said, thank you for the angels who showed up. But I'm beginning to find my stride here as I not only honoring those emotions, but being in the emotional content of it. Allowing my emotions to catch up with me because I'm in love. I'm in a new, deeper experience of love as never before. And so all of that human stuff, all of the ego as it's integrating with the higher self is just needing to catch up. That's all. And so I had to cut myself a little bit of a break. One of the things I've also had to do was really lean in to my friends, really lean into my relationships. And really lean into God. And, again, you can look at God as being, any word that you put on it. Of course, the highest of power where I'm the one for me, where I'm fueled and what constitutes my faith. I had to lean in. And really, I felt as if, and the leaning in here, it's hard, especially when you're feeling nothing. Especially when you're feeling numb, when you can't tell whether you're happy or you're sad. And I had to put into practice all of the things that I have taught, all of the things that I have been doing. And when I say doing, I guess in all the things that I had been creating to be, that beingness of who I am. And there were times as I was leaning into my emotions, leaning into God, leaning into my relationships, that feelings of, I would say, of almost intimacy with myself began to return, intimacy with my own soul, getting to know who I was again on a much deeper level, because as I said, I'm in a much deeper place of love than I've ever been before. And in this, eventually, I began to find my stride. What was, I think, one of the pivotal points for me was probably about 2 weeks ago. And I've been on the road. I've been doing these amazing connection events. And I took a spontaneous trip to the ocean. I just literally knew that I was so physically and emotionally tired that, and I couldn't find pace with myself. And even though I was doing the work and my spiritual practice was in place, I really had even stepped away from some of the things that I knew or that I relied on the most. And so a spontaneous trip that allowed me to go rest, that allowed me to take a break from social media, that allowed me to take a break from, and maybe if you've been following me on social media, you've probably noticed I'm, not babbling out there quite as much as what I used to. That's been a little bit of my step away, a little bit of my rest period. And in some way, I guess the sabbatical that the universe has placed me on. But when I took this trip away, I stepped away from everything that was a spiritual practice. I did it intentionally because I found that in this energy, I needed to find pace. I needed to understand what worked for me and what didn't work. And so I had to quit everything. I quit my yoga. I quit my meditation. I quit my journaling. I quit my gratitude practice. I quit everything. And I just gave myself permission to just be in that presence of just being myself, where I gave myself an opportunity just to do what I could. And man, oh man, when I took a look and focused on what I could do, I was able to follow through. But there were things when I recognized I couldn't do it anymore. I gave myself permission to not do it. And that's huge. Because I'm not being helpful to you. I'm not being helpful to anyone. I'm certainly not being helpful to myself if I'm not able to discover what it is that I still can do, what I want to do, and not pushing myself. And so by taking this sabbatical, by completely, it just sounds so radical. I'm like, here's this spiritual leader who is getting all these people to create these spiritual practices and to find their authentic self, and who discovers that she really didn't know anything of herself anymore. And so I quit everything in order to discover who I am, what is my truth. And it got my mind away from, quite honestly, this whole sabbatical, this whole time away, got my mind away from this constant cycle of that energy that I was recognizing as depression. And every day it was just, doing what I can. And I recognized that doing what I can and doing what I could and doing what felt the best to me was really about getting into flow, being in this energy of love, and finding pace with the ebbs and the flows of my own soul. Because I think we put on a lot of expectations, and I know I certainly do, of how I believe I need to show up in the world, what I need to say, what I need to do, how I need to do it. And with the demands of all of that on me, I literally wanted to run away. And I'm not going to lie to you, because it wasn't that I was abandoning my calling. That's not it at all. But it was just that I was tempted, I guess, to do all kinds of things that did not honor, my spiritual path whatsoever. But there were some days where it was just, okay, I'm not going to do anything stupid today, but I'm not going to meditate. I'm not going to do anything stupid. I'm just going to, go for a walk. I'm just going to allow myself to be completely, totally human, if only for today, if only for this moment. I needed, and as I said, to step away to, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful I didn't do anything rash or irresponsible, because I certainly couldn't give up this beautiful life that I've created in the way that it's being created and unfolding to me. But certainly within these last few months, just like all of you, a lot of confusion and self-doubt, and this time away, the time on the island, the sabbatical that I've been on, this opportunity to just give myself presence in being human, ultimately, was what the most amazing experience I've ever had. I would say is the ultimate of all spiritual experiences. And I'm going to talk more about that after the commercial break. And I'm also going to help you, give you some steps of what you can do if you're finding you're in a place of burnout, if you're finding that you're feeling stuck, you've lost your passion, you have no motivation, and you need a little ounce of inspiration to keep going. More of that after the commercial break.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. So, who's going to do what? Flashlights?
Nowhere to be found.
Where to be found? Batteries?
Dead.
Great. Emergency supply kits?
Not packed.
No. What about blankets?
We have an old towel.
Good enough. Cell phones?
May not work.
Emergency water?
Not a drop.
And what about food?
Nope.
Perfect. We all know where we're meeting if we're separated, yeah?
The library. Aunt Joan's house.
The bus stop.
Great. And I'll be waiting here wondering where you all are. Sounds like we don't have a plan. Who's up for mini golf?
Winging it is not an emergency plan. Make sure your kids know what to do during an emergency, who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information. A public service announcement brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
When Dad needed help getting around, I became his driver. Any daughter would do the same. But soon enough, he needed help doing more things, and it was up to me to be his personal shopper and financial manager too. And before I knew it, Dad moved in with me, so I became his cook, his personal assistant, his physical therapist, and even his nurse. When I started taking care of Dad, I didn't realize all the roles I'd have to play. But no matter what, I know I'm still his daughter.
We understand the many roles you play. And to help, we created an online caregiving resource center. At aarp.org/caregiving, you can find resources and connect with the caregiving community. Together, we can better care for ourselves and the ones we love. Visit aarp.org/caregiving to learn more. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, Russell Wilson here, and I know how important exercise is.
It's essential. It's essential.
With Play 60, United Way and the NFL are helping kids stay active and play at least 60 minutes a day.
Healthy kids. Healthy kids.
But what this place needs is you. To donate or volunteer, go to unitedway.org/play60 because great things happen when we live united.
Donate.
Are you guys going to do that every time?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
This is the sound of salmonella gyrating on your undercooked chicken. And it looks like Mom might be taking it out a little early. Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. So use a thermometer to cook each type of meat to the right temperature. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
Don't take it so seriously. Lighten up. Trust the mystery. Lighten up. It doesn't matter anyway. Just enjoy your life. Get out of your way. Lighten up.
Now back to Lighten Up with Bonnie Wirth on Empower Radio.
All right, so we are talking about finding this new pace with our soul in the immense energies that are playing out. As I said earlier, we are on mission, we are on go time. And so it's so important that we kind of take care of the things that need to get taken care of. And it really comes down to honoring ourselves, but loving ourselves even more than we ever have before. And that really has been what's been playing out over the course of the last few weeks, I would say probably last couple of months for sure for me. And I think it's important to recognize, and this was hard for me. And again, that whole, ego pride thing is that we're not the only one. You know, that moment we reach out and tell someone, we begin to have those conversations, we begin to, receive the help that that we need. I think that as it doesn't matter how spiritual you are, how many modalities you have under your belt. It doesn't matter what you know in terms of consciousness and in terms of how we create and how we interact with the laws of the universe. It doesn't matter how much we understand about, the metaphysics of everything, nor in terms of our interactions with spirit or how we know these beautiful divine forces are working with us so intricately. You see, it doesn't matter how much we understand and know about that. There's a part of us that is still so perfectly human that we must, pay attention to what needs to be paid attention to that's playing up inside. We can't deny ourselves that experience of our emotions or of our humanity. In fact, when we do, we actually dishonor the whole reason why we were created in the first place. We dishonor the whole purpose in our being here. So as I was saying, I really had to look at finding pace, and I want to help you to find pace. And again, I think that once we understand that we're in this together, we're not alone in any of it, and that you can, maybe something that I say can help you kind of move forward through whatever it is that's playing up for you. And of course, if you're really struggling, by all means, please reach out to me. I mean, I work with people all the time in terms of doing sessions and coaching through some of these really difficult transitions that we're playing out here in our lives. Our souls are calling us to purpose, as I said. We're on mission. And as that happens, there are different degrees or different levels of things that we go through. And it's almost as if we're birthing into becoming better than we were before. We're birthing into newness, not only energetically, but birthing into newness within our own self. And so if you need a little help and support with that, by all means, please reach out to me. I'm a girl who's been there, who's done that, and can help to love and support you through and give you some tools in a way that, to be able to manage and grow with a little bit more ease than maybe what you've been experiencing. So, of course, again, reach out to me. You can find all the info on my website at bonniewirth.ca. Would be glad to hold your hand and your heart through it all. All right. So I really want to get back to some of the highlights, I guess, in what I can share with you in some of the ways of how I did find pace. As I said before the commercial break, I stopped doing everything. I took a time out. I absolutely gave myself permission to just show up every day, just with no plan, to show, as I said, the spontaneous trip that I took to the island really renewed so much of me. But I just gave myself opportunity to sleep, to give myself opportunity to rest, to find stillness. And if you're like me and you've got a crazy Gemini mind, and I mean, I've got 5 planets in air, so the whole thing of, as the channel and all of, that plays out, the channel with the heavens and all of the interactions that I have, not only in my life on a human aspect, but of course in that metaphysical way, and in the busyness of my mind and the amount that I think and the thoughts and the stories and the planning and the ideas that go on, I literally get even mentally exhausted, and I haven't even said anything. So for me, finding not stillness so much as rest, which gave me opportunity to begin to slow down a little bit, to slow down. I didn't write. I didn't even pick up a pen. I went for walks. I spent time in nature. I literally just sat and stared out at the ocean or, marveled at the sky, honed in on a tree and just stared into space, really. I gave myself permission just to slow down and to rest. In some way, I guess it was about finding stillness. Although for me, sitting still for any periods of time doesn't happen. I got to get moving. And that's why for me, those long walks in nature, that hanging out by the ocean, that indulging in the feeling of, sand and, even drawing with my finger in the sand. I mean, that was really helpful. What else really played out is I conquered a fear of mine. And nothing brings life back to you than being able to pull off what has been maybe something that's been holding you back your whole entire life. Now, what I mean by this is, and it doesn't matter what fear it is. It can be, from the fears of coming out of the closet, if nobody knows that you talk to dead people and suddenly you come out of the closet, like there's a lot of fear that plays up in order to take that step. It can also be fear of, speaking your truth, to fear of changing jobs, to fear of change in general, finally quitting that job, taking that step to do it, right? The amount of relief that you feel, this sense of absolute empowerment that plays out when you finally conquer one of the fears that have been holding you back. Mine in particular had to do with suspension bridges, which is really funny in my family because my son used to say that when he grew up, he was going to build a house that would have a suspension bridge that would get to his front door, because that way he knew his mom would never just show up unexpected. So, it's been a running joke for many, many years, but it was a very great fear of mine. I probably, I know how it all plays out, and there was probably a past life somewhere and the whole shebang and, in that concept. But for me, as we went through this, 125-foot gorge and waterfall, I mean, it was just this intensity that I felt inside of me, which is that the panic-stricken, that fear that began to play out, that was taking my breath away. But I went ahead and did it anyway, holding my husband's hand. And I mean, I don't know whether he'll does have working use of his hand yet, but holding his hand and being able to walk across that bridge. And of course, when you walk across, you have to come back, right? So I had to do it twice. But on the way back, I was finally able to stop, to actually look down, to enjoy the waterfall, to see the beauty of nature. And I felt safe on a suspension bridge, but safe in my life for the very first time in so long. And conquering my fear literally not only empowered me, it gave me a spark. I suddenly became elated. I was energized. I was refueled. So I really want you to take a look at your life, my friends, and what is it that you're afraid of? It could be a suspension bridge, and it could be speaking your truth. It could be taking a risk. But if there is a fear that's playing out, I want you to know that when you can pull within you all of the strength, and just as I stood there, the moment I took step onto that bridge, I called upon all the unseen forces of the universe. I called upon spirit and said, all right, you guys, I am trusting you to lead me here, to take me forward, to keep me safe as never before. I'm handing myself over. And I felt as if I was being held up the whole time I walked across that bridge. So I want you to know that we are being held up. We are being taken care of. We simply need to ask and call upon all of those beautiful divine beings that are all around us, all of the forces of the universe. Because the beautiful thing is, we've all been led forward onto this path of evolution, of higher consciousness, of being leaders in the world, and those out there bringing more light. And we've been brought forward onto path, and we have to remember that wherever we are taken, we are always cared for. And whatever fear that there may be, we need to simply ask, and I'll tell you what, we can move through that. That, I think, was the ultimate of spiritual experiences for me. Because I really discovered my own strength. But more than anything, I really discovered trust in the universe than I had ever trusted before. I was able to trust again. That's huge, especially in being a place where I didn't trust any decision I was making. I didn't trust how my life was playing out. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I felt as if I had hit a wall. I was tired, exhausted, burnt out. And so that conscious decision to trust again was such a wonderful thing because it brought me into this newfound flow and energy of not only in the energy of trust, but surrounded within trustworthiness of my own self, trustworthiness of the heavens, of spirit. Trusting again really gave my heart this feeling of freshness, to feel alive, and ultimately feeling really hopeful again. And now I can show up. I can be a contribution. I do have inspiration. And this mission that my soul is putting me on and this busy work that's ahead, I feel like I can keep up with that because my emotions have caught up with me. All right. So the next thing that came up for me was, I know, how many times do we hear this, but I'm saying it again. I'm preaching to the choir. We must take full responsibility for ourselves, full responsibility for the health of our soul. That's how we can find pace with it. Nobody else is responsible for our health. We are. Whether you pray, whether you, read or recite mantras, we need to replenish our energy. We need to eat healthfully, to eat right for our bodies, to work out, to exercise, whether it be walking in nature, whatever it is, and to love deeply, because these things are what nourishes our soul. And if we don't do them, nobody will. And when we nourish our soul, we find pace with it. When this whole going with the flow becomes easier. As we honor ourselves, our physical body, our mental body, our emotional bodies, as we honor whatever is coming up, our soul is saying, thank you, yes. And that pace of life, that slowing down, the finding stillness, the taking action when we feel inspired to take action, and then hanging up the towel when we feel like we can't do anymore and we can only do what we can, nourishes our soul. And when our soul is nourished, we align. And when we're aligned with our soul, life becomes easy. We find ease in flow. We find deeper meaning to life in flow. And the stuff that was suffocating, weighing us down, that we were tired of and exhausted by, does not exist within the same energy. It can't. It's of a whole different vibration. It's of a whole different essence. But we cannot deny, as I said earlier, the privilege, and it is a privilege to be here. We can't deny the privilege of being human. And I realized that in all of the busyness and the leading and the helping and supporting that I had been doing, that was a part of my own spiritual journey that I had neglected and forgot about. I think in some way, in the helping of other people and in the showing up of what is to come, and even though I was finding my presence in a moment, I wasn't present with myself. And you know that you are in pace with your soul when you can find presence with your own self. So how can you find presence with yourself? As I said earlier, it's about doing the things that nourish your soul. And sometimes finding presence with yourself is standing in front of a mirror and looking into your own eyes. To really connect with your own self, looking into your own eyes deeply, mesmerizing almost, remembering that inside of you is this beautiful angel where all things are possible, who deserves your own love and attention and affection, and in presence with your own self, even if it's in the reflection of a mirror, you find pace with your soul. Because the pace of your soul is love. Your soul only knows love. And yes, there's all the karma and there's all the other things at play and all the contracts and all the things that, make us who we are, unique to this lifetime. But a part of you, the whole of you, the one of you, is a presence of love. It's as I said, the expression of God itself. You are God itself. A personification of the one. Each and every one of us is. And we can find presence with ourselves. We remember. And when we remember, we are fueled. We are ignited. We are energized. We are revitalized. We are renewed. And we can feel happy. It's been quite a few weeks, let me tell you. As I said that, I'm like, wow, I feel happy. I know I can only, as I said, take responsibility. The only change I can ever make is the one that is within myself, and how I seek out friendships and how I honor my energy and how I take care of me. And I think, that moment of feeling presence with myself, in pace with my soul, and recognizing that I'm right on course. I'm exactly where I need to be. I don't need to be doing any more than what I'm doing, only when I'm in the action-inspired energy of it. And that I have permission to slow down, to do nothing, but to give back to myself. In fact, giving to our own self is what we need to do. We must fill ourselves up first before we're good for anyone else. It's like being on the airplane, when when the stewardess, I don't know, it's funny how when I first started flying, here, random story. When I first started flying, I used to pay attention, like serious attention, to the stewardess who was giving all of the information about the masks as they fell out in case we needed oxygen and where the emergency exits were. And, I was very, very attentive passenger. And now it's like, yeah, they're talking. I'm not really paying attention anymore. But, in that, when they say, put your own mask on first, give yourself oxygen, and then you can take care of everyone else. And that's it. This whole place of burnout, this whole exhaustion that I was feeling, this getting nowhere fast feeling that I was under, this relentlessness that was playing up around me, this self-induced suffering really was just an indication that I needed to get to know me on a deeper level. I needed to breathe. I needed to find my oxygen. I needed my mask. So, my sweet friends, I want you to believe there's hope. There is, and I've done, of course, numerous shows on hope. Hope is one of my favorite words. But it's truly, there is hope. And there's a new self that is emerging within you. And this new self is what matters. And it doesn't have to be a long road or hard journey, not at all. But for me personally, I knew that this life of mine, like it's like God wasn't done with me yet. It wasn't time to go. There's still things that my soul is here to achieve and to accomplish. And now that I'm healthier, I know that I'm going to be able to do that more effectively. So I really now have got back into really taking a look at some of the basic spiritual practices that I have. Spending time in nature is a spiritual practice. With the long, cold winters here in Canada, I realized I hadn't had an opportunity to just indulge in nature. And oh my gosh, she juiced me up. Thank you, Mother Nature. That it was, in a spiritual practice just to be playing with flowers, to be walking and touching the trees, to be sitting in the sand and, oh my gosh, and listening to the sea lions. That nature, the therapy of nature, is a spiritual practice. So is fun. Yeah, you heard me. Having fun is a spiritual practice. We, at some point, I think we begin to take life way too seriously. And that was a huge message on my Connections tour. So many people, that Spirit saying that same message over and over. You forgot to have fun. You need to give yourself permission to have fun. And I realized that somewhere along the way, I had a motto that if it wasn't fun, I didn't want to do it. I needed to have fun every single day. And I realized I stopped having fun. That's a spiritual practice for me. It sounds basic, and I'm not doing any through it. I'm having fun. And that fun factor, that energy, that fun factor is what brought my giggle back, is what brought my deep, hearty laughter back. Spiritual practices don't need to be rituals, and they don't need to be, under the constraint of and order of how it needs to be. It's about doing, as I said earlier, the things that nourish your soul. And in that, I'm enjoying what I'm doing more than ever. And the opportunities before me seem even greater than they did before. I mean, I could never even have imagined this, a few weeks ago, not for where I was, because I was exactly at zero. But I showed up. And showing up to your life is a spiritual practice. I showed up every single day to me over the last few weeks. I showed up. I got up. I took action, even when I didn't feel like taking action. And when I say action, I mean I put on my shoes and I went for a walk. I made choices. Those choices that we make are so important. And I cling to the hope. I do. And in the knowing that the sun will rise again. And that in some small way, that when we feel defeated, discouraged, or believe that it's done and over, that this remembering of who we are and why we're here can rise within us. Show up to your life. Make the phone calls you don't want to make. Conquer your fear. Take time out, sleep, rest, whatever you need to do. And know that those choices you're making are what constitutes finding that pace in these new energies, in this new way of living and being in this fifth dimension that is playing out all around of us. The opportunities here, my friends, is for us to learn to love ourselves even more, to nurture care. And when we do that, our soul says yes. Left foot, right foot, Let's run. Let's stop. Let's get up. Let's sit down. Honor your rhythm. Find your flow and stay there, because nothing is more important than for you to create that balance within you. Spirit, mind, body. And from here, true happiness can find its way to you. I know it certainly has for me. So from my heart to yours, and in flow with life, my friends, big love. Bye for now.